Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Yachting Brief, a podcast where I'm speaking to industry experts about all things yachting. And with that said, before I introduce my first guest, I would like to speak to our audience. If there is anyone out there wondering if their luxury yachting brand is competing in this market well, and you're just not sure if it's hitting the mark, feel free to give me a message or look at my website, www.studiovoyage.com, and I can help you elevate your yachting story. Now, on to our first guest. I'm so excited to have Kelly on us. So Captain Kelly Gordon is not just a super yacht captain. She is a leader, mentor, and influential voice in the yachting industry. As a captain, she is not only navigating both the high seas, but manages the complexities of crew management, luxury service, and special operations. Beyond the helm, she just keeps giving. Kelly has built a thriving personal brand using social media and public speaking to inspire the next generation of yachting professionals. With a strong focus in leadership, wellness, and business, she continues to shape the industry. So, welcome, Captain Kelly Gordon.
Wow. Can we just record that and put it on repeat? Because that was just one heck of an introduction. I mean, what a way to start my morning.
That can be like a positive affirmation every morning. There you go.
Yeah, I know. I could just put it on repeat and then print it out and put it as a sticky note on my mirror so I see it, and then I hear it in the car on the way to work. I mean, that was an amazing introduction. Wow. I'm your first. I am so excited.
I know. Obviously, I wanted to have you with us because you've got such a presence and you're doing such amazing things in the industry. So if you tell us where it all started.
Well, thank you, first of all. And it was all kind of very accidental. I mean, it was very accidental, clear back to becoming a yacht captain, because I was a chemistry professor before I was a yacht captain. So that was accidental. And then, really the whole social media presence and brand presence now, it's so weird to say that I have a brand. Because, I really, at the end of the day, just like to drive boats and help people. And having the brand presence on social media is really kind of weird, because I hated social media back in the day. And the only reason that I had it was because I was away and my siblings were on it. And so it would be kind of it'd be kind of a way when I'm on anchor watch late at night at 2:00 in the morning or something, and I can scroll through their feed and see what they're up to, And so that's really the only reason that I had social media. And then I was running boats up the inland rivers of the United States. So the Ohio, the Mississippi, the Tennessee, and that's some really tough boating. I was doing it with another woman, and she was my deck stew. And somebody said, you should really just tell your story about these travels. They're pretty cool. And I was like, okay. And, the Triton magazine was my first interview. And so we did an interview, and it was literally just asking me about what it was like being on the rivers. And it was tough. And there was a bunch of men out there and how we got on. And then it just went from one thing to the next to the next. And so then there's, another magazine, another newspaper saying, hey, can we write about this? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And not really thinking anything of it. And then I said to myself one day, I was like, you go to some cool places. Why don't you just start posting a little bit on social media? So I did, and then it took off, and it took off from, which I didn't know what I was doing with social media. So I realized I had to hire a guy really quick. And so I did, and it's kind of cool when I think back to how brands start, and you hear Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and all the big guys, and their brands started in a garage. Well, mine did too, except for in the garage of a yacht. So it was literally me and this guy walking down the dock that I saw with a camera, and I was like, hey, what are you doing? And he's like, hey, I have this new business. And I'm like, hey, I have this idea. So literally sitting on the garage floor of the yacht that I was running at that time. And then the brand started, and it just went from sharing, my story about being a female captain and getting to where I am, to the pretty places that I'm at, to then me realizing that I missed teaching. And he just said, well, why don't we start something called, I don't know, the captain's classroom, where you can still be a captain, but you can teach. And I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. And then it went from that to me becoming a mental health advocate. And that's really a big, huge part of me now. The captain's classroom, yes, still is, because I love to teach and share tips in yachting, but the mental health advocacy is huge for me. And I'll just be blunt with it. When I was 26 years old, I attempted to take my own life, and it didn't happen. It didn't work, thankfully. And I put in a bunch of hard work and a bunch of years of therapy. And then when I got to year 39, I said, I'm the happiest I've ever been. And I am 43, going to be 44, still saying I'm the happiest I've ever been. I really can resonate with the young 20-something that's struggling, because my 20s were really hard. And being a teacher and liking to help people and loving that age group, and just being at a point in my life where I'm very transparent. Like I will just tell you what I've experienced and what I've been through. And if me sharing my story inspires you to live a better version of yours, or to at least keep living, then I'm going to talk all day long about it. If I can change just one life by sharing my own story, and that's all I have to do, then I'm going to do it. So yeah.
I wasn't ready for that. Wait, no, I think everything you've just said will resonate with somebody. We've all unfortunately either lost somebody or been close to somebody due to like mental health, and I think it's something that's really coming to the forefront of our industry right now. I've had conversations with mental well-being experts and what they're up to, and I think a word that keeps coming up is awareness, and that is just so crucial in our industry to share awareness, because I know it's everywhere, but especially in yachting, it's a pressure cooker for what we do.
Yeah.
And I think if people in the industry that have experienced it, like yourself, and like, how many years have you been in the industry now?
16.
Like, probably the things that you've seen from the start to now.
Yeah.
Like leaps and bounds.
Leaps and bounds, yeah. And I'd like to think, when I started speaking about it, the first step was awareness. And fortunately, I had I still have a really great mentor for it. And it's Pete Southgate of Cayman Flag State. And he chased me down at Miami Boat Show a few years ago and said, "You've got a voice, you've got an ability to make a difference, run with it." And I was like, okay, and I had made a post on social media about a crew member had taken their life. And I just made this simple post and I said, "Hey guys, check in on your crewmates, check in on your family." And that post resonated with a lot of people. And it was the simplest of posts. And so then from there, I just started sharing stories. And then and when I made that post about this fellow taking his life, it was out of sadness, but also frustration, because I'm like, damn it. This industry needs to do better. And then a little bit later, after Pete said, "Run with this," there was something else that happened and I got frustrated again. And I said, damn it, I'm just going to take this to the boat show. I'm going to start speaking publicly about this. And at the time, my social media manager overheard me say that. And I meant it, but I didn't. And so then he comes back and he's like, "Hey, by the way, you're speaking at Palm Beach Boat Show." And I was like, "Huh? What?" And I was like, "Okay, let's do this. We're doing it." And that first talk was standing room only. It was 80 people. We were stealing chairs from the food tent nearby, so people could sit down. And I think that was a big turning point for the awareness part of it in the industry. And I started speaking, some other people started speaking. Emma and Kate Ross from Seize the Mind, she come along about the same time as I did. And we both just started kind of screaming from the rooftops to anybody that would listen about, hey, every time I would start a talk, I would intentionally share a story. For two reasons. One, from a public speaking standpoint, to get your attention, but also to let you know, hey, this is the stuff that's really going on, and people's faces, I could just look at them in the audience and their chins would just drop and their eyes would get so big. And so then it's like, when I started sharing those stories and was very real about it and very unapologetic and could stand on a stage in front of so many people and say, this is what we're going through, people, they had no choice but to listen. And so then I said, well, you know what? That went really well. How about we just take this internationally? And this was my first talk. And I'm running off with the mouth saying, let's take this internationally. And well, then lo and behold, we're at Monaco Yacht Show. And then it goes from, I think I've been at this for 5 years now, Monaco to Turkey to Italy to and it's to Dominican Republic. It's just like, wow, okay, people are listening.
People are listening.
Yeah, they are.
What were people's overall reactions? Like, you said that in the audience you tell these stories for a reaction, and did anyone ever come up to you and say, like, I've been waiting for this moment?
Yes. Every talk has tears. Every talk that I give, wherever I give it, has tears. And I say that it's bittersweet. It's bitter because the people are crying, but it's sweet because they're sharing. They're sharing their stories. But then also too, it's not just me standing up there sharing stories of folks. It's people sitting in the audience willing to completely expose themselves in an audience full of people that they don't know and share stories of what's happened with them. And oftentimes they end up crying, and we end up talking, and we all end up sharing. And my audiences are made up probably 50-50 of shoreside industry leaders and crew members, so everybody gets to hear what's going on from all sides. And so it really resonates. It does.
To hear that it's also, land and sea-based jobs is really important as well, because I think we forget, we might be a crew and we might be on board, but there are so many factors externally. Like, you have management, you have reps, you have owners, you have captains, and you have your family. Then it goes to your friends. And whilst you're just in this little bubble, like you're on this boat bubble, and you kind of forget that everyone else is going through similar things, you're just in, I call it boat bubble, like boat glasses. It's all going on. I remember in my first season, and I was on a really small private boat, really nice owners, and I got a phone call saying that my best friend had ended her life. And it was really sudden. And it threw me. And I'd had some previous bad news to that. My mum was not so well. So I was on this boat, and we were in Sardinia, middle of nowhere. And I remember my captain said to me, okay, go to your cabin. Like, you're fine. Go to your cabin. And I cried for maybe an hour. And then I was like, okay, no, I need to do my jobs.
Yeah.
And I just totally shut off. And, even now I think about it, I think it took me until my next season that I had near enough 3 months off, just like family downtime and just enjoying a bit of life. And I think that was only until I sat with it and got off a boat and into the real world did I actually process what had happened. So regardless if it's you who's going through it, like, the impact it has everywhere else is just madness. I remember my main thing at that time being, oh no, I need to go and set the table. And I was thinking, like, what is this I'm going through?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. And you said the same thing that I say about this industry all the time. It's the exact phrase that I use is it's like a pressure cooker. And, look, the issues that we have in our industry are no different than any other. But the big difference is that at 5 o'clock, we don't clock out. So if we're being bullied by somebody, there's a good chance that bully is our roommate. So not only do we have to work with them all day long, now we have to go and share a room with them. Or, you get bad news and you're in the middle of nowhere. You're not just hopping off the boat onto a plane to go process and deal with that, and it's like the fact that we live in this little pressure cooker environment really just magnifies and kind of almost just blows up everything that we have to deal with, because we live together, work together, play together, eat together, share a room together. Sometimes, you are in the middle of nowhere and there is no getting off of the boat. And there is no going and hiding and getting personal space, because you probably have, a roommate, or you can maybe go to the bow to sit and have a good cry, but somebody's going to come around the corner eventually and want to know what you're doing. And so it's hard. And also we work in this industry that is extremely intense and high pressure, and we're supposed to, like you say, we're supposed to put the smile on our face. We're very, very good at snuffing out our own emotions. We are very good at putting that fake smile on and getting on with it. But the problem with that is when you go set the table, when did you ever get to process what just happened to your best friend?
Yeah, it took me near enough a year later, but I do remember literally being like, okay, stew face, I can just pull this around and I'm going to smile. And yeah, and the thing is, we always used to say, especially the last one I worked with some really, really good crew, and they were so about, everyone being honest if they were having a bad day. I had 2 exceptionally good chief stews, which I owe so much to at that time as well. There was so much going on. They were amazing. And they were such advocates. But, if you're having a bad day, just say it. And yeah, we were so good at just saying everything's relative in everyone's world. Don't worry about it. If you can't do this today, that's fine.
Yeah. No, and that's kind of one of the ways that I lead is very much, I have subtitles on my face. And so it's like, if I'm happy, it, if I'm sad, it, if I'm frustrated, it. But I live in that, and I let my crew know that, and because it lets them know that I'm human too. And once they see that I'm human, I think that opens the door for them to be human as well. and when they have bad days, they let me know that they have bad days. And I think that's important, because to try to just put the smile on and get on with it all of the time, I mean, just look at the evidence. It's not good for us, and we have to find better ways of dealing and of coping. I mean, because if you would have gotten that news at the office, your manager probably would have said, okay, clock out, go home,
For sure.
and you're, go to your cabin, cry for a minute and come back and work.
Yeah. And in your career, so you've been doing this for 16 years now. Do you think if you look back at the early days, you reflect and you think you would have done things differently, or was there a time in your career where it changed, or have you always just been very aware of emotions and very aware of how to deal with your crew's well-being?
Oh, I'm sure. Hell, I still screw it up every now and again. I don't get it right every day, Just yesterday I was upset with a crew member, and I had to grumble at him, and I grumbled at him in front of a couple other crew members, and I was like, was that the right thing to do? I left walking away going, okay, did I handle that poorly? Did they need to know that nobody gets favorites around here? Ask you to do something, I need it done.
Yeah.
Should I have handled that Like, I started going through in my mind, like, did I handle that right? Did I do that wrong? Was it okay? So I get it wrong still. It's an ongoing.
I suppose with that says more about you and the way you reflect, and that is essentially like a very key person, like a very nice trait to have as a leader, because if you had never said that, or if you'd come away like, I did that right, it doesn't even matter, that would be more of a red flag.
Well, thank you, because you know what? I even came back to those two crew members and I said, "Hey guys, I'm sorry about grumbling at him in front of you guys." I said, "I don't know whether that was." I told them exactly what I told you. I don't know whether that was the right thing to do or not. Should I've grumbled at him privately? And it wasn't a big. It was just a kind of like, "Hey,
A little grumble."
Yeah, and I was like, and I told them exactly what I told you. I said, "Hey, I'm sorry. Maybe I didn't handle that right." And they're so forgiving, and they're like, "Ah, Cap, it's no big deal." There was nothing there, So yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it would be a bigger red flag if I didn't think
Yeah, if
about
you
it.
had no empathy, you'd be more alarmed. And you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier, you said about, if you go to your bed and, your dorm or your bunk that night, and you could be in the same dorm as a bully, I feel like we emphasize a lot on board about mental health, but I think we really suppress bullying on board. I'm fortunate. I always, start this with, I've only ever worked on really good boats and had very good captains. And like, I speak to friends and they have not had experiences like that. And I think that it's almost even a topic that isn't more so talked about.
Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right. And it needs to be talked about, because it happens a lot. And what's interesting is I was reading some statistics, and it was saying that you're twice as likely to get bullied on the interior as you are on the exterior. And yeah. And I think that, that's a whole different can of worms. But I want to go back to what you asked me, how have I seen maybe myself change or the industry change in the last 16 years? Of course, myself, I'd like to think that I get it better, because I constantly study leadership, and I constantly study, interpersonal communication, and just the way I'm very curious in the way that, our brain works and the way we process things. And so I'm always reading about that, even if it's just 5 minutes a day, or a short article. So it's something that I always want to get better.
So how do you balance your time on board as well as on land? Because you obviously are on board right now, but that's not always the case.
So I work for a very busy family. This is my first time working private. I've always been a charter captain, and I've just loved being a charter captain. So this is my first time going private. And we have a fleet of boats. I calculated the other day how many feet of boat we have, and it's like 295 feet of boat. And I was like, Lord, that might be why I'm stressed. So I think, you asked me how do I manage my own level of stress? I'm not the best at it. I'm better about standing up on stage and preaching about it than I am managing my own, if I'm to be completely honest. But it's something that I definitely work at and am very aware of, because I know where I was in my 20s and I don't ever want to go back there. I know my triggers. I know myself. I know when I need to dial it back. And so it's a good balancing act. And this is where I want to give huge kudos to my owner, because he's one of the few that gets it. And we all have crew housing no matter where we go in the world. Yeah. Is that not cool? Explain
how does that work? So you have crew housing wherever you go in the world.
Yeah. So when we go, so like we're based out of Palm Beach, so we have crew housing here. And then when we go to Michigan for the summer, we'll have housing in Michigan. And when we go to the Caribbean, we'll have housing there. And now not all of us will be in the crew house at the same time, but the way that I'm kind of putting it together currently is so that we can rotate. Like when, the boat goes to Michigan, then, at night, a few of us will be on board, but a few of us will be in the crew house. I don't know exactly how it's going to look. We've been talking about it. Are we going to do, XYZ crew gets a week in the house, at night, and then, then the rest of us get a week in the house, because there's so many of us, I would have to have a hotel, mini hotel to be able to house all of us.
How many crew are there involved in this?
There's 8 full-time and probably going to be 2 freelancers too, just because we have, Cabo itself is only 142 feet, so that requires 8 of us. But the fact that we have so many other boats in the fleet and that and at any given time we're fairly spread out across the world, so I need a couple more than just 8 for the size program that we have. And so then I get that he's very supportive of us getting the housing wherever we go. So then we'll rotate through it. So like probably something like 1 week these crew members get the house, the next week these crew members get the house, that kind of thing. When we're in Palm Beach, it's easier. We all have crew housing because we're based in Palm Beach, but it's pretty cool that he gets it and he knows that we need to be off the boat in order to come and have a genuine smile on our faces at work and take care of him. So he's really one of the few, and I hope if there are any owners listening that you hear this, because we're extremely happy. None of us plan on going anywhere. There's tons of crew members that want to come work for me in this.
I can imagine. I'm like, where's my CV at? I'm sending it over after
right?
this.
Yeah. So it really helps, because if we had to be together all of the time in a program such as this, that's intense. We all have different levels of intensity for programs, but this one is up there. And I think if we never had that opportunity to be off the boat, it would be much, much more difficult for us. So that's one of the ways that we balance it just from the owner. And then I try to be just very flexible with my crew. One of them today, she was like, I have a lot of things that I need to do. She was telling me yesterday, she's like, I need to do this. I need to get the dog groomed. I need to change the oil in my car. I need to run, an errand for my son, blah, 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 blah. And I just looked at her and I said, do you need a personal day? And she's like, I do. And I said, okay, take your personal day. So I try to run a fairly flexible schedule and be understanding. And I think those things go so far, because as soon as I looked at her and I said, do you need a personal day? Her face just lit up and she was like, okay, I can get some of these things done. So I try to watch out for everybody, in that fashion. We're here, so it works, but it's something that I work extremely hard at. I spend the majority of my day, what I say, peopling. I don't spend the majority of my day captaining. I spend it peopling, and it's taking care of my crew, making sure that they're okay, making sure that everybody's happy, trying to remind myself to make sure that I'm happy as well, and not feel guilty when maybe I need to come in a few minutes late or something like that. So it's a lot of work, and it's something that you have to be very aware of.
And it also works both ways, because I imagine the crew that, have these things and you give them this time and these not privileges because they're essentially basic needs. I imagine that they are some of the most hardworking people that you've also worked with.
Oh my God. My chief officer's been with me for 5 years. I mean, you just can't get any better than that guy. And my engineer's been with me for 4 years. The deckhand's been with this family for 10 years. And so they're proven
longevity.
Yeah,
obviously.
They're absolutely fantastic. And so they're, I like to think that when I give them that, I get it in return. And when I travel the world speaking and doing stuff like that, they're very supportive. When I say, hey guys, I'm going to be gone for Monaco Yacht Show, they hold the fort down. When I tell them I'm going to Flibs or I'm going to Palm Beach, they hold the fort down.
You've got trust in your crew, like the way you're speaking about them.
Oh, I do.
You can see evidently. You're proud of them.
Oh my God, I am so proud of each and every single one of them in so many different ways. And, we all have such different personalities, and, it's really cool. Like I love them so much, and I genuinely love them, and it's like I would go to bat for them any day of the week. But it's also it's a lot of work. It's a lot of peopling every day, all
Yeah.
day.
And so you've said you've done a lot of chartering as well as peopling. Charter compared to private in terms of what that does to crew. Because I hammered charter for 5 years and I enjoyed it and I made my money, but sometimes I reflect and think maybe I should have just gone down the private sail route one season.
Yeah, it's a personality. I think you're hitting on it very much. Charter versus private is a personality, and it's very easy to chase the money in charter, but you
Too
also have
easy.
to, yeah, you need to have the personality for it. And I love charter because I don't like to be stuck at the dock. I like to go. I became a captain so that I could go and see the world. And so charter for me, I absolutely love. And switching and going to private was different. And then when I joined the program, we immediately had a really long, extensive yard period. So that was hard for me, but it was also a blessing in disguise because as hard for me as it was to be stuck in a long yard period, which I love. I love the yard because I feel that that's where a huge amount of learning happens is in the
Yeah.
yard. But I also wanted to be a captain, but it was a blessing in disguise for me because the time that I was in the yard was perfect timing for me to really launch my brand, to really get the message out there, to really advocate for crew members better in a mental health space. Had I been go,
Yeah.
it would have been much more difficult for me to do what I did. So in terms of this particular family, they're different because grass does not grow under their feet. So I feel like I'm on charter, just with the same family the whole time, which is good for me because I like to go, and I like to drive my boat and I like to travel and I like to entertain. So I don't know that I've really had a true private program yet.
Yeah. You've not found it. You've not found that slow, but maybe you just never will find that slow. Maybe, like you said, it's just a personality and you'll always just end up on a vessel or a program that is go, go, go.
Well, I think so because it's the energy that we put out, right? I'm very much into the energy that you put out is the energy that you get back. So if I put out in terms of my personality that I like to go, 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 boats like that are going to be what comes to me.
Yeah. You are what you attract.
Yeah. There may be days, I mean, I have Clark now, which is my dog. And so, she's just been the best blessing, but I'm like, I might be okay with not so much go, go, go so that I can just chill with my dog. She is absolutely the best. And let me just tell you, like, since we're talking mental health, this daggone dog has done so much for not just me, but the whole entire crew. I literally will lose a crew member during the day and be going, where? Like looking around, and then I go outside and they're playing tug of war with the dog on the dock. And it's like,
You're like, I really don't know what I'm meant to be doing here, but I'll leave it. I'll leave it for now.
yes, exactly. But it's so cool to see what she does. And everybody's like, where's Clark? Where's Clark? And it's just what she has done for all of us on here, what she has done for me just in her short little time of being with us. I mean, we adopted her from Big Dog Ranch Rescue here in West Palm. And I had no intentions. I didn't know what I was going after. I knew that it would pick me, and she was the last dog that we looked at there. And she's just been absolutely perfect. And mental health, let me tell you, she has been a huge pick-me-up for everybody because she's such a good read. She knows when somebody needs a good snuggle. She knows when somebody needs to take a break and go play tug of war. I mean, yeah, I'm in love with Clark.
As part of all flag and class surveys, all dogs must be included on all vessels.
Exactly, right?
We have changed the rules.
Yeah. Well, everybody knows they better not lose Clark because they know that Clark is officially the favorite crew member. Sorry, I'm not supposed to have a favorite, but I now do have a favorite crew member.
You do.
And it's Clark.
So with that being said, so we spoke about, the 16 years you've been in it and where you saw the industry at the start, like where do you see it heading in terms of, what you're up to?
So much better. I mean, there's so many people now are speaking about mental health. So many people are coming up with new programs and entirely new businesses with what they can do to better the mental health, but also call it crew wellness, because it's not just mentally, but it's physically. We have to take care. They both go together, you know. And it's so cool to see so many more people advocating, so many more people coming out with businesses that really can support and help crew. It's changing. I mean, because I even remember just in my lifetime, you know, growing up as a kid, when my mom, you know, we kind of grew up that you just pull yourself together by, you know, pull your boots up by the bootstraps and get going. But even in just seeing in my own lifetime, even my mom's mindset change on this idea of mental health, of depression, of anxiety. And I've seen it within the industry as well. And it's progressive. Like I said, like there's just so much more awareness about it now. And I think we're entering the stages of action. Like, okay, the awareness has been made. And that's what my mentor, Pete from Cayman, has said to me. He's like, okay, you've done a really great job of beating the drum and making people aware. Now it's time to start, you know, saying, okay, what can we actually do? You know, kind of like phase 2 actionable steps. And I feel like that's where the industry is as a whole. Is they're like, oh, we know this is a thing. Now, what do we do with this? How do we help the crew members get on better and take care of them? And so we're moving along. We are. Maybe sometimes I wish it was faster, but we're really progressing. And I think that it's going to do nothing more than progress. And, you know, we're also seeing some lawsuits come up where crew members are being held accountable for their actions and their mistakes. And as sad as it is, it's necessary evil, because we need to realize that we need to be accountable for our mistakes in the industry. So it's really progressing and professionalizing. And so I like the trajectory that I see that it's going.
And what would you say to those older school captains that attitude is just, well, that's yachting? It's just yachting.
It's not just yachting. It's not just yachting, because look at the statistics. If you think it's just yachting, it's not normal for people to take their life. It's not normal for people to resort to drugs and alcohol. It's not normal. So if you think it's just yachting, look around, because that is not normal. If you see that crew members are dropping like flies, we talk about retention. We have entire conferences on retention because we can't retain crew. That's not normal. So no, it's not just yachting, and it's not normal.
I sound so preachy about it, but I find that in our industry, it's almost fascinating that we haven't led into the understanding of culture as well. You know, if you've got a captain that doesn't quite understand where this is going and they're preaching, you know, this is just yachting, how can you ever expect to see change? And I suppose that's where you're at, and you're like, okay, I've done the preaching now, let's start making things move. So I am very excited to see where you end up and what you end up doing.
I'm excited too. Thank you.
I'm excited. What's your next steps in terms of your plans this year? So you've mentioned you're heading to a couple of boat shows and your crew are going to hold down this fort. Where are you going? What's your calendar look like?
Well, thanks for asking. One of the things I just realized, Dot, that I didn't even think to mention was my newly launched nonprofit charity, which is Yachtie Minds Matter. And so one of the things that I hear of on the docks when it comes to therapy is the gatekeeper to therapy is money. So you may have an insurance program that only allows you 4 or 5 sessions. And 4 or 5 sessions, if you've got a lot of work to do, is like not even, you know, a drop in the bucket. Or maybe your boat doesn't offer it at all. And so every time I talk to crew members and the idea of therapy come up, because I'm such a huge proponent of it, because I wouldn't be here without it, they say, well, I can't afford it. So again, in my haste and my frustration, I said, well, I'm just going to build a charity. If that's what's stopping people, I'm just going to start a nonprofit. Little did I know anything about starting a nonprofit in the United States and running that through the IRS. But oh my God, a year later, we got it done. So here we are. We launched last November at Flibs. And so I'm really excited about this. And so what that does is if you want to go to counseling or you want to go to therapy and you can't pay for it, come to yachtingmindsmatter.org, let us know, and we'll pay for it for you. No questions asked, we'll cover it for you. And the other side of that is if you want to take a mental health first aid course to better your education about mental health and you can't afford to pay for it, we'll pay for that too. So I'm really proud of that.
Do you take any sort of donation from crews? I know a lot of crew are more involved in these, you know, fundraising exercises as a form of crew bonding. Like, is that something you're also doing, or is this purely just, you know, you're funding this?
Oh God, no, I need donations. I can't. No, it's fully funded by donations, and we've had some great donations so far. But one of the things that I have learned about having a nonprofit is the struggle is the donations. And
Fundraising.
sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's really, 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 really hard. So please, if you like are listening, and even if it's $5, $10, $20, or it's even a lot more than that, that is the way Yachting Minds Matter will be able to continue to offer these services to crew and to keep going, is it's fully funded based on donations. So any amount, even if it's $5, is much appreciated. Good question.
Oh, definitely. No, definitely. And I'll include all of this below. You can send me all the links and I'll pop it in the relevant places. And I'm super keen to have a read about that. I know I've been with crew that will do fundraising. I think some just cycled from like the top of England to the bottom for a charity. And I'm sure there's definitely crews out there that have been impacted by incidences on board or know a friend. Like we all know someone.
Yeah,
so
we all know
I'm just
someone.
thinking we can spread that message and get that out there. So the name of the charity is called, once again, Kelly?
Yachting Minds Matter.
Yachting Minds Matter. Okay, I'll definitely be sharing that. So as well as that, you've done Flibs this year and you're heading to...
I done Palm Beach, and then next is Monaco, and then after that is Flibs. And probably some odds and ends of stuff in between, but the program that is gearing up to get really, really busy again. So, you know.
Sounds busy.
Yeah.
Sounds really quite busy.
Yeah. So I'll be around, and then of course I'll be on my socials. You can see me there every day. Or if you have a question, shoot me an email.
Okay, and what are your social channels, Kelly? Tell us.
So Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. I think I nailed them all. Yeah. And my handle there is Captain_Kelly J. Gordon.
I haven't actually found you on TikTok yet, but I bet you'll be in my algorithm when I look.
Oh, yeah. Your phone is listening to you right now, so your phone will hear it. Thank you so much for having me on here. This was such a good episode, and I can't believe that I'm your first. I'm so excited to be your first. And what an honor. Really, truly, this was so fun this morning. This is so good.
A good start to the day. So I'll wrap it up there. I'd like to thank Kelly so much for coming on the podcast. And if you want to be included in next season of the Yachting Brief, feel free to drop me a message and like, comment, and subscribe.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Right.